everybody. There I am. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Horowitz. Welcome to 92nd Street. Why, everybody? Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. How great is this movie, Inside Out 2? Come on, guys, give it up. Not only do you get to see this wonderful movie on the big screen tonight, but whether you know it or not, you're inside my podcast right now. This is a live taping of Happy, Sad, Confused, and we have a first-time guest on the show, someone I've wanted to have for a long while. She has assembled quite a career, Maya Hawke, Ms. Maya Hawke. In addition to being the voice of anxiety in this ginormously entertaining, beautiful film, you know her from her amazing music, from Stranger Things, from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So much great work to discuss tonight. We're going to dig into all of it and your questions. Please give a warm New York welcome to New Yorker Maya Hawke, everybody. Come on. There she is.
Hi.
Hi, Maya.
How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, good.
Are you good?
Yeah, really swell.
You have a lot to be swell about because this movie, I didn't even mention the numbers. I could just exhaust everybody with numbers.
Did well. Is that what you're saying?
It did really well.
I take no credit. I mean, that's.
It's all you.
No, I really don't think so.
I'm just going to say it for the sake of folks that don't know it. I think about $1.7 billion. Not that that matters, but it's a nice thing still. Highest grossing animated film.
I didn't make that money. Making sure that that's out there.
No, you need to renegotiate your contract. Highest grossing animated film of all time and a Oscar nominee for Best Animated Feature. So congrats all around.
Thank you.
Do you get a ticket to the Oscars? Are you going?
No.
What? Renegotiate again.
Again, yeah, there's a lot to be done with this contract, clearly. No, I mean, I'm so excited that this movie is nominated because getting to be a part of something that I really believe in, like that I also think has had a power of good, is so moving and important, and getting to be a part of these kinds of screenings and celebrations of the movie and watching people watch it and react to it and hear their feedback, it just is so special to me. Yeah. And the honor in and of itself.
There is a generation, arguably there'll be multiple generations that know you as the personification of anxiety. How does that sit with you, that you are the living embodiment of anxiety for future generations of children?
You know, that sits with me great because I think with the way that the movie ends, it's giving kids a warmer relationship to their anxiety. So that sits with me great. Doing interviews and press and people saying to me, so you're a really anxious person, does not sit with me that well. That I'm like, no, I'm an actor. It feels like sometimes the whole world has forgotten what being an actor is, that you can pretend to do things. It's really funny. But the kids knowing me as anxiety and as their warm, friendly anxiety that's there to protect them and they just need to get to know a little bit better, that sits with me really well.
Has your voice itself been recognized by children yet? Has any child said, wait, that voice sounds really familiar, that's the voice of that crazy-looking character on screen?
It's hard to know. People do recognize me by my voice all the time. Like, I often have people, like, hear me talking. I also talk really loud. But hear me talking to someone and then double back and turn around and be like, hey. But I hard to know whether or not that's Stranger Things or anxiety or whatever it is.
Do you like your voice? It served you very well in music and acting. Where are you at with your own voice?
I mean, I like my voice enough that I elected not to get a vocal nodule removal procedure that would have made my life and singing a little bit easier because I heard it would potentially change the timbre of my voice. So I guess I do like my voice.
That was a choice at some point? That was a discussion?
That was a discussion. But so I do like it. I mean, whenever you hear your own voice back, especially if it's not from a performance, like if you just are talking in the background of someone else's voice memo or thing and you just hear yourself being like, hey, I'd really love to get that comic book. Like, it's like, oh, I hate my voice. But when I'm speaking intentionally and know I'm being heard, I like my voice.
So was something like this a conscious or unconscious thing on the list of things that you wanted to do in a career? Like Pixar knows how to do it right. Were you a Pixar kid?
I was a total Pixar kid, and I mean, working on something like this was such a big dream. I almost didn't even dare to dream it, you know? But I mean, it's always been an ambition of mine to enter the voice acting space. I really think there's a freedom from your body and from the way people see you that acting, you know, in an animation or in a podcast or just, you know, a radio play offers you this liberation from your physical form that is so exciting and awesome, and I've always wanted to get into that. But Pixar is pretty much the creme de la creme of that work, in my opinion, and so it's a dream beyond dreaming.
Do you cry more from the beginning of Up or the death of Bing Bong in Inside Out?
I cried so much at the death of Bing Bong, I couldn't watch the movie again. Like, I was like, but I'm so fragile. Like, I had nightmares from watching Ghostbusters. I am an extremely tender, fragile creature that is like, I thought it was for kids. It's so upsetting. Why did it have to be so upsetting? But the beginning of Up is so sad, and it's like crying, but maybe because it's the beginning and you're still getting to know the characters, I can survive it a little bit better.
So I was going to ask you, were you an emotional kid? You just answered the question. You were.
I was a real emotional girl, as Randy Newman would have said. That joke was for very particular people in this audience, clearly.
But the 6 people that got it loved it. Yeah. So how did that impact the kinds of entertainment your parents exposed you to? Did they keep stuff from you, or were they knowing that this could really hit young Maya hard, or?
They might say this differently. I would say I didn't ask, until my teen years, I didn't ask to be exposed to a lot that they would feel the need to protect me from. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't reaching for
You were
the horror
self-censoring?
movie.
You were like, I don't need to go beyond my...
I was a bit self-censoring. I mean, for example, I broke my mother's lipstick once and came to her with it, holding it, crying, and she was like, it's okay, it's fine. And I was like, no, I need a timeout. I've done something really wrong. So my moral compass was pretty well adjusted until the 9th grade, and then it went completely off the rails, and good luck censoring me.
Well, I mean, let's get into kind of like early influences. Obviously, your parents, very well-known actors, very accomplished actors. To ask them, would they have said that it was inevitable that you would have pursued this? Was this something you talked about openly right from the get-go?
I think so. I mean, I was fortunate enough to grow up in such a creative community where the making of, and I wish this for all kids, where the making of art and the participation in art kind of ran like water. And it didn't even seem like a choice or something that made you special or different. It was like, what are we doing on a Sunday? We're putting on an audiobook and we're watercoloring. Like, you know, it was, what are we doing on a Saturday night? We're going to the theater. What are we doing? Like the engagement, we're gonna go see a ballet. We're gonna, like, the participation in the arts was full throttled for my whole life. So my interest in it didn't really seem that special, I think, but until I was a little bit older. But I had my own academic challenges, and I think as those became clearer and clearer, the refuge and comfort I took in the arts as something that I could do and knew how to do that didn't get graded didn't get a letter grade was extremely meaningful and important. And then I think when they started to know was just when I didn't stop, you know, when I didn't start joining. I didn't start joining sports teams or getting spontaneously great at biology. I was always every summer trying to go to acting camp and theater camp, and I was making watercolor books, and I was illustrating my own novel that I'd written. I was just like that I was annoying. Let's not be confused. I was an irritating, extremely preachy person who was really interested in saving the trees and also laminating my own books of poetry and like screen printing them and handing them out to people. So by the way, I do see the controversy there, the trees, the books I was making. I didn't see it at the time, but my hypocrisy is clear to me now.
So there was no because the act of rebellion kind of would have been to go the other way, arguably, to be like, I have no interest in the arts. I'm going to be a lawyer. That would have been cool.
I mean, that would have been awesome. I didn't have the skills to rebel in that way. Like I just wasn't a successful student, really, in any way other than like, every report card would be like, incredible in class, participates wildly. I haven't seen a homework assignment in 9 months, but she's a delight to have around. So there was kind of that, but yeah, I wasn't. My rebellion was like in a emotional evisceration of people's character, was like just it wasn't.
I can tear you
like
apart.
I was
13 years old.
Yeah, it was more like more direct than the indirect rebellion of being like I'm a Republican, Yeah.
Right, the Alex P. Keaton rebellion. That's dating me. Family Ties. Sorry. So you didn't go pro as it were until you're 16 or 17 years old, and that's by virtue of the fact that your parents basically set the ground rules and said no auditioning.
It was outlawed. It was outlawed. I mean, I think both my parents were child actors,
right.
Which, if you've looked into that at all, people seem to have a bad time.
100% success rate as human beings.
Though that said, I do know many wonderful, extremely talented people who started young, who have extraordinary, brilliant work ethics and brilliant minds, and have wonderful social lives and healthy attitudes toward themselves. But it is really difficult, and I think that they wanted to give me space to be a private person. And I think that's even what, one of the benefits of school is getting, and even whether it's acting school or art school or regular school, is getting to experiment with pushing the limits of your capacity without getting reviewed for it, getting to, let's say, play like a, I played the Artful Dodger in a high school play, and I wouldn't get cast as the Artful Dodger in life, but I got to do that and find that person in my body, and no one had to review me for it, and thank God, So, yeah.
What about in terms of, if I saw the posters on your wall as a kid, what film or TV actors, movies were you obsessed with? Were you Harry Potter, Twilight? What were your franchises? What were your things?
I was very into Hannah Montana. Very, that was my big poster. Thank you, friends. I was very into High School Musical.
Oh, wow.
I was a Disney kid in a big way. I was a big Disney kid, but then I also loved the Wrinkle in Time series and the Golden Compass series, and I loved A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And there was a lot. I went to school. I got kicked out of or asked to leave the elementary school that I was at, and sent to a school for kids with learning disabilities. As I said, I was slightly academically challenged, and it was an hour drive. They now have Windward is a wonderful place for kids with dyslexia and all kinds of different learning differences. But they now have one in the city, but there used to not be, and so I would drive an hour in the morning. Myself. No, just kidding. I would get driven an hour in the morning to this school and an hour back home. And that's really where my love of books came in, because I would listen to audiobooks. I mean, audiobooks are my life. And I would listen to them to and from school, and that's where I got a lot of my reading done. And then at home I was a Disney kid and a Food Network kid. But
always goes hand in hand.
Always goes hand in hand.
Did you dress up as any characters Halloween? Like any memorable characters you really were obsessed with?
My most memorable Halloween, I dressed as a parrot.
Sure.
Because I wanted to, and it was. This is just. Now that you brought it up, I know it's not really connected to what you're talking about, but it's a sad and lovely story. My mom made me this beautiful parrot costume, and she glued on every multicolored feather to these angel wings, and glued them onto this dress, and it was so beautiful. But it was the first year that girls started dressing like sexy police officers. Oh. And I came in my feather-covered, multicolored nightgown with my big parrot wings. I just really loved animals. And I loved the zoo. And I arrived to a room full of people, and when they first were trying on stockings and short skirts, and I locked myself in a closet and cried. that was a memorable Halloween costume. But no, I was really interested in poetry. And I loved going to the theater. I made my dad take me to every regional production of Hairspray, like in every state that it went to. Like they were on tour and I was their groupie. And
that car behind the bus.
Yeah, it was
the
our
Hawks,
car.
yeah.
It was our car. And of Wicked and of South Pacific, and there was just I loved musicals and loved going to the theater, and I don't know, yeah.
And what was your relationship to, I would imagine your relationship to the films of your parents is much different than mine. Like I watch Pulp Fiction and I enjoy it, but you watch Pulp Fiction and you see your mom being stabbed with a hypodermic needle. That's got to be a little bit more traumatic for a young child.
It's a skill set to learn. I mean, I will say, I'm always asked about what I've thought of different films of my parents, and the truth is I haven't seen a lot of them. And you'd think that was weird, except try to imagine when is the right time to do that. Like, it's too important to watch one of their movies just like on your computer, when you're on an airplane. It's like, that's too important. And it's weird to all get together as a family and watch it. And it's weird, like your friends, when you come over and they're like, oh, we want to put on a movie. It's weird of them if they're like, yeah, we're dying to watch Nymphomaniac. So it's strange windows of opportunity to experience it, but you also do want to understand the work, the life's work and the dedication that your family members have put into this craft that you are also, putting your energy and love into. But it is complicated. I was so disturbed when I saw Kill Bill 2 specifically. I was older when I saw Pulp Fiction, so I was fine with that. But the coffin thing, I just couldn't. Right. But I saw my dad in a play when I was really young, where it was Ivanov, Chekhov, and a wonderful play, by the way. I love the play, but I didn't know at the time that the character ends his life at the end of the play, and I was terrified. I was like, what? Like, it was, again, sheets of tears locked in the closet. But seeing common themes running through my life. Yeah. So
is there one that you're keeping for a rainy day that you haven't seen of either of your parents that you still haven't watched?
Yeah, but it's going to be so embarrassing if I say it out loud.
That's why we're here.
I mean, Dead Poet Society.
Gasps.
I know.
Gasps.
You guys would all be shocked that I hadn't seen that. That one's locked in a box for a rainy day.
It's a good one. You should check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you start. So is it like a momentous moment when you start to audition? Like,
and of my mom, hysterical blindness. I can't wait to watch that. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So the shift in terms of like I'm gonna try this out, and they're gonna let me try this out. Like, do you remember your first auditions?
Yeah. Well, I really. I think it was through my school. I don't totally know how it happened, but one audition crossed my desk in high school. And this story is kind of, if anyone wanted to know, this story is available. But an audition for Sofia Coppola was doing A Little Mermaid, right. And I really wanted to audition for it, and I really protested and did my version of rebellion to make sure that I could, and I did, and I ended up going through like a long audition process for it, like a year long. And then the movie ended up not happening. But that was my first audition. And then my next auditions were for drama schools. And I auditioned for all of them and a ton of them. And then when I was in drama school, I was kind of like sneaking out at lunch breaks trying to audition for other things because I was determined to be fiercely independent. And the next audition I remember was for the first part I ever got. I think there were many more before then that I didn't get that I don't remember, thank God.
And that's Little Women, I assume we're going to...
Yeah, Little Women.
Okay, can we revel for a moment the fact that we never got to see Sofia Coppola's Little Mermaid? I'm sorry, that's crazy.
I know, it would have been really cool.
It wasn't a musical, it was...
No, she was also going to do it in many ways inspired by the original myth. Like, it was going to be a darker and really... I mean, in some ways, I'm glad that it didn't happen because I had a lot of really wonderful life experiences that might not have happened if that had. That's a little bit of a rocket ship to the moon that I'm, hindsight's always golden, that I'm kind of, in some ways, glad didn't happen. But I also would love to see that movie, even if I didn't get to be in it, and would have loved to be in it. Let's be very clear.
So, okay, you mentioned, I'm applying to drama schools. You're like kind of throwing that away, but you got into Juilliard. You went to Juilliard, correct?
For 1 year, but so that not a good thing to brag about when you only went for 1 year and it's a 4-year program. But I did go.
But that was your choice. It wasn't like they said, "See ya, Maya."
It was complicated. They have really strict policies about working and being in school, and I took a job thinking it wouldn't interfere, Little Women, and it did interfere. And so it was some mutual,
Got it.
Mutual parting of ways.
So when you go into those auditions and you get, for instance, Little Women playing Joe, choice part in this great production, I mean, you're a smart person. You know your name, expectations walking into a room. Like, did you feel that, especially in the early auditions? Now you've obviously amassed this body of work. You walk in, you're your own person. You're Maya Hawke. But early on, I would imagine that follows you into an audition room in the early days. Or did you not feel that?
I think it's actually like sort of started to cumulatively follow and affect me more now than it did at the time. I think I did feel something of that at the time, but I was so confident and I felt so scrappy and so confident and really unencumbered and really like, this is gonna be great. Like, I don't know, it's like I'm gonna devour the world, and I think over time, and I also hadn't ever gotten any feedback. I hadn't really been with anyone who was like, and so I think over time, as I've gotten more feedback about that, I've kind of developed a more complicated relationship to the idea of what those expectations mean and hold.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was aware of it, but I was aware of it.
It's funny because like I've had so many guests on this stage or elsewhere whose parents were well-known actors, whether it's John David Washington was here and Lily Rose Depp and Jack Quaid. And if anything, the common conversation topic that when this comes up is they almost felt like they had to overcompensate and like work harder because there's a sense from some people that you're skating by. You're like, oh no, I'm gonna outwork you just to show you that.
I say this not as a criticism to anyone who has said that, but I think the idea that you have to work harder is crazy.
Well, you shouldn't, absolutely.
Not that you shouldn't. I mean that it is easier. Like you don't have to work harder.
Right.
I mean, I think I have so many wonderful friends from drama school and from New York theater, and who didn't have the luxury to come from where I come from, and it is harder.
Yeah.
You have to work hard to earn people's respect and make sure that you show up on time and do a great job and are prepared every day, but everyone should do that anyway.
Right.
And you have to care for the people around you and try to share the luck that you have. But I definitely don't think it's harder.
Yeah.
I think you do have to work hard to earn people's respect, but you always do.
100%. Okay, so jumping into, so Little Women, big role, big production. Did you feel a comfort level, or was it kind of like, where does this camera, like, how does this work? What's a mark? Like, what was your sense of comfort on that first set?
Well, I grew up on sets.
Right.
So I was really comfortable. I'm more comfortable on set than I am anywhere else. Certainly more comfortable than I am right here, right now. That community and world, and the world of being in a big group of people who are all making something together, and the experience that I'd had in my life to understand exactly what the sound department does, and exactly what props do, and what set design does, and how those things are different, and that you can't touch your props, and that that's your mark, and they're gonna light, and you're gonna step aside after they light, after you block it, and the rhythm of it, and the pace, and the snack cart, and
most importantly,
are all like my total comfort zone, and I feel really at home with it. The place where I started to run into feelings of discomfort and newness were in its release, in press, that's where I was like, whoa, I haven't been here. Because like I said, my parents really worked hard to keep me private.
Right.
So the outward-facing public stuff I wasn't included in, but I was included in the art-making part. And so the art-making part has always been my comfort zone, and the outward-facing part has always been my like.
So how do you get you're doing great. How are
Thank you.
So. I know you don't like grades, so I'm not going to grade you, but you would get a really good grade if there was
thank
one.
You.
But no, how have you managed
I
that?
love grades if they're A's.
If they're A's, okay. It's an A. But yeah, like what was the switch in your mind? Like how do you're obviously not, falling apart here. You're hopefully okay.
Yeah.
But like where did that switch come from? How do you deal with the press that comes with releasing an album, being in Stranger Things, being in a Quentin Tarantino movie, etc.
I have no problem with it when it feels like the promotion of a thing that everyone got together to make together. Like being here for this movie, when it feels like we're promoting this movie and saying, come see this movie, we all worked really hard on this. I did my little part, but thousands of people did their part, and they deserve to be on the stage just as much as me, and let me tell you who they are and what they did. That, totally comfortable and fun, and talking about what the material is about and what the point we were trying to make. When it edges into feeling, excuse me.
We're getting personal and deep, and your phone rings?
I'm just joking. When it edges into feeling like self-promotion and when it feels like you're doing press and it's not clear what you're promoting, it's like, wait, hold on, what am I talking about? Like, just you. Like, and I think that it's a little bit old-fashioned, and I definitely think loops back into the way that I was raised, but I think that the line between actor and celebrity has gotten extremely blurry. And I think, in some ways a celebrity is someone where their personality is what is the draw. And what I always wanted to be was an actor, where the work is what the draw is, not the personhood. But the industry keeps changing, and you have to change with it and understand that all of these things are getting blurred. And there are wonderful, incredible actors I admire whose personalities we all know very well. And so I think just figuring out the footing in these changing times of social media and public personality, and also how difficult it is to get things made. And it's like, where it's like, I don't care about Instagram. Instagram sucks. Right, but just so you know, if you have over this many followers, you can get the movie funded. Well, I want to make the movie, so it's a really confusing line to walk, and I've talked to so many smart directors who tell me that they get I'm talking to them about how I'm going to delete my Instagram, and they're like, just so you know, when I'm casting a movie with some producers, they hand me a sheet with the amount of collective followers I have to get of the cast that I cast. So if you delete your Instagram and I lose those followers, understand that these are the kinds of people that I need to cast around you. So and so it's confusing, and I find I'm thinking out loud with you right now. I think this will be a lifelong question for me.
And then we have a filmmaker who probably doesn't have access to social media or even an Apple phone, iPhone, Quentin Tarantino, and you're on a set like that where I've talked to many actors that have obviously worked with Quentin, and it feels like that's like that's heaven. That's kind of like where you want to be as an actor.
Well, yeah, there are these few directors, maybe there's 10 of them, who have reputations that are vast enough and have shown how well they can work and what they can do, that they get given a lot of freedom and a lot of privacy. And they don't have to have 1,000 extra BTS guys taking footage and asking you to make a video of you peeling your orange on the side of the set. You can really focus and sit there and make a film with them. And I've been privileged enough to really work with 3 in my life. I got to work with 3 sets that were like this. I got to work with Quentin, I got to work with Bradley Cooper, and I got to work with Wes Anderson. And all of them have this extreme sanctity to their set, where walking onto that set is like walking into church. You can hear crickets, nobody speaks, you're rolling on film. It's extremely focused and extremely celebratory at the same time. It's not overly snooty serious. It's raucous, but it's raucous in the direction of the work and centered on the work. And I don't know any actor who wouldn't want to work on that kind of set, much less with auteur directors of that caliber of excellence. But even just to get to be on a set like that is church.
There's one filmmaker you didn't mention, and I understand why, because it was a smaller piece of time, but Brady Corbet directed one of your music videos.
Oh my God, yeah. I also didn't mention my dad. There's no one be offended by my list. I didn't mention my dad, who also had a very church-like on the movie that we made together, Wildcat. But yeah, Brady
that jumped
Corbet.
out at me. Obviously, folks have probably seen The Brutalist by now. If you haven't, you need to check it out. It's unbelievable.
I'm obsessed with Brady.
Yeah.
He's a genius. And one of the things that's most genius about him, not to mention the story and the quality of that work and film and the performances, but for what he made it for. And it's even back to this conversation about producers and budgets, and these conversations, he's the sort of person who says, this is what I want to make. This is who I want to make it with and what I want it to be about and what I want to shoot on. How much money can I have to do exactly what I want? And if the number is lower than he would want it to be, he doesn't compromise and say, oh, well, then I won't do what I want. Okay, then I'll give this up. He's like, okay, I'll figure out how to do it for that. And it's an inspiration. And it's I think for, not that what he made it for was a low amount of money, but it's a lower amount of money than most films that get nominated for Best Picture. And for young filmmakers going into this industry and thinking about wanting to tell their story and thinking, how am I ever going to raise $20 million to make my masterpiece? You could raise 10, there's possibility and that you can make things, if you have the spirit to do so. And with my music video, Brady, I think you were going this way, right? Brady directed Therese, and he made that music video for like $2 in a mug, and he was like, let's do it. This is what I want to make. This is what we have to make it. We're gonna make it. And we shot in the woods at like the back of my dad's yard, and we were hanging up flashlights from trees and reflecting them with mirrors, and everyone was doing us a favor, and especially him to me. And it was one of my favorite filming experiences of my life, and that felt like church and like a party.
Slightly larger budget on Stranger Things, safe to say.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish you'd known prior to signing on to Stranger Things that you could have told Maya a few years back? I mean, it seems like, you know what you're getting into. It's already a huge success. I don't know, was there any kind of sticker shock or surprise about the way the production was done that you wish you had known?
Nothing had prepared me for working on a character that didn't have an end. When you're working on even something like Little Women that I did for the BBC, which is 3-episode arc, or any sort of film, you can track your character or a play from beginning, middle to end. Where do I start? Where do I have to end up? What has to happen to me to get me from this beginning person to this end person, to be on this journey? And I wish I could have talked to myself about learning that it can't be about that it has to be putting your boots on every day and trying to make something magical happen that's worth watching, and go blindly into the unknown, a little bit like life, of not knowing exactly where your character is going to end up, and just trying to pursue it with love and openness. Because I wasted a lot of time in my first season being like, but how am I going to do this scene if I don't understand what's going to happen in the next episode, and I just am totally confused and freaking out, and you have to explain it to me, and blah. And I could have saved myself a lot of time, and Matt and Ross a lot of, if I had understood that better.
It must be, though, a source of pride that it's such a large ensemble on that show, and one of the true achievements that the Duffers have done, and the whole directors and writers on that show, is serving that entire ensemble pretty damn well.
Oh my God, yes.
But the fact that your character in particular, became among many a fan favorite. I mean, what does that mean to you when you hear folks that really adore Robin as much as they do? How is that meaningful for you?
Well, it means a lot to me because I love TV. Even as I said, I didn't know how to act in a TV show. I certainly know how to watch them, and I love them. And it's always difficult when you love a story and characters, and they bring in a new character, and the new character, inevitably, because you only have 30 to 40 minutes of episode time, makes you spend less time with the characters you love. And sometimes you're happy, and usually you're not. And so I was really nervous about distracting from what had already made the show so special and what people had fallen in love with. And I didn't quite get at the time that a part of the Duffer Brothers method is to bring in new energy every season. I mean, they did that with Sadie Sink in season 2, but I didn't quite see the way in which they were doing that, like that was a part of it. And so I was really nervous about it, and they do it so well. And I feel similarly, to Inside Out 2 as Stranger Things, when you're a part of something that works, you're just so lucky. Like, it's so relaxing to be a part of something that works, where the creators of it understand its heartbeat and know how to, they're like watchmakers, and they know how to tighten each gear on the watch so that it runs smoothly and keeps the time. And you just have to come in and play your part and, try to hit the notes right, try not to slam on the note that's out of key, but so it's just beautiful, and I was so moved to get to the point that you were making. I was so moved to feel accepted by the fan base and continue to be so. And, even when we just went and filmed this past season, which no one's seen yet, every day was on my mind of, am I serving the story? Am I serving the people who love this show? Am I, dedicating myself to what they come here to feel?
Right.
And that's the guiding light every day, is like, what do they come here to feel?
I know you're very good at watching TV. I don't know how good you are at watching yourself on TV, but I have a clip. I'm going to show a clip.
Oh, okay, I can handle it.
You can handle it? I just noticed your eyes went really shut.
No, I'm a huge egomaniac. Let's go.
This is a scene that we've all probably seen many times, but it's a wonderful scene between you and the wonderful Joe Keery. Robin essentially coming out to Joe.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Listen to me, Steve. It's shocked me to my core, but I like you. I really like you. But I'm not like your other friends, and I'm not like Nancy Wheeler.
Robin, that's exactly why I like you.
Do you remember what I said about Click's class? About me being jealous and, obsessed?
Yeah.
It isn't because I had a crush on you. It's because she wouldn't stop staring at you.
Mrs. Click?
Tammy Thompson. I wanted her to look at me. But she couldn't pull her eyes away from you and your stupid hair. And I didn't understand because you would get bagel crumbs all over the floor. And you asked dumb questions, and you were a douchebag. And you didn't even like her, and I would go home and just scream into my pillow.
Tammy Thompson's a girl.
Steve.
Yeah? Oh.
Oh.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Holy shit.
What do you remember about shooting that? Did you feel a special weight to that moment?
I remember everything about shooting that. I remember the weeks that led up to shooting that scene. Will always be so grateful to the brothers for writing me that scene and for writing that monologue the way that they did. We had so many different conversations about, does it make sense for Steve to react so open, in this time period and in this location, and does it make sense for Robin to be so open, even as it's difficult to say? And of course, we have the truth serum, which does help, and kind of we had these conversations about the idea that the truth serum somehow also brings out the best in you, actually goes to the real truth of all of our deep compassion for each other when we are surrounded by each other, no matter what our past conditioning has taught us to believe about anybody. And I remember I remember going into that bathroom and someone suggesting that we just sit on the floor and figuring out that he could slide under the thing. And I remember being so surprised how few takes we did, because we do so many takes on that show, so many takes. But funnily enough, the dialogue scenes that are just straight dialogue usually take fewer takes than the really complicated cinematography that the Duffers are extraordinary at. Those take more and more. But a scene like this, they really just are like, let us know when you're done. We trust you. You know these characters. Let us know when you're done. And that's such a generous thing to do, and it was such a moving scene to film, and an even more moving scene to have come out into the world.
I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for the final season. Am I? Are we all ready for it? Because I feel like the cast has talked already about how emotional you guys got making it. Did it feel especially momentous? I mean, some of these folks have been, literally, we've seen them grow up.
I know. It's like boyhood.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if you can be emotionally prepared. I'm not emotionally prepared, both for the ending of these characters and these stories and for the ending of this chapter in my life. You know, I mean, if you could see the tears that were shed in the last few weeks of filming, they were like overwhelming. And in fact, I even think I learned something about acting, filming the last scene of the show, about being emotionally present and like, you know, the kind of thing where you always know what you're supposed to be doing, but you're not actually doing it, and then all of a sudden you lock into something and you're like, oh, this is how you do it. This is what I was telling other people to do. I get it now. But I don't know. It depends on where it sits in your heart, you know. But it's definitely gonna be something.
We haven't even talked about your music career, which is a huge part of your life.
Touched on Brady.
Well, yes, we did. But talk to me a little bit about, like, is that, even when you're shooting, like, does that stop and start, or is it an everyday thing? Is music a part of your life?
Music is and always has been a part of my life every day. What stops and starts is where it sits in terms of my career. And kind of, this links back to what we were talking about press and self-promotion. I think there's something, because, you know, even though a bunch of people work on a record, it might be a little more like directing a film, actually, but because a bunch of people work on it, you put your name on the cover. And then the act of promoting it kind of falls on you alone, and it does start to border on what feels to me like self-promotion, which does make me uncomfortable. But I'm always writing music and always making music, and finding new and different ways to have it be a part of my career.
Does the acting work inform the music? Like, is the next album going to be informed by the year of shooting Stranger Things 5, or is it a totally different kind of part
I think it probably will be. Yeah. I mean, like, how I talk about it is like, if you know how you have an outlet on the wall and it's got like 3 different little plugs, but it's all coming from the same power source. Right. It's like you can plug music in, you can plug acting in, you can plug painting in. It's all coming from the same source, and there are different outlets to express it. And I feel like more and more people are being interdisciplinary artists these days for a variety of reasons. But a lot of which have to do with that one of the only ways to survive in this career these days is to generate your own work. Waiting around for someone to send you a great life-changing script is not necessarily the path anymore. So that's an aspect of it, but they really speak to each other and inform each other, because both are asking you to dive deeper into yourself and to know yourself better and to identify your feelings. And so I'm just kind of always in the practice of doing that, but it's nice that I can do music at home. It's all,
sure. And it's also, though, I mean, it's also exposing yourself in a different way. I mean, I think back, I remember when your dad was like writing books at first and poetry at first, and he got a lot of flack at first. I feel like people were like, what's this actor doing writing a novel?
He got so much flack. I feel like people get a little less flack now.
I do now. I think he kind of suffered through for the rest of us. Exactly.
A multi-hyphenate pioneer.
But do you feel more exposed, you know, releasing an album than you do, as you said, like when you're in Inside Out 2, this is 1,000 people worked on this, and you are one very important component of it. You said just now, music is a collaborative art form, but still, you're writing these songs. You're the
sometimes
face
you have to
of
be
it.
the face of it.
Yeah.
Does it feel more exposing? Sometimes the nature of questions that people feel entitled to ask feel like based on the window that you've opened to, like, but putting it out doesn't. Like, you know, in every performance, I hide personal secrets and truths about myself. And, you know, like for Robin, for example, has so many different chapters of journeys of where I was in my relationship to myself at any one time are packed into that character and that story. You know, Inside Out 2, anxiety is the little voice that talks to me in my head and tells me I'm not doing a good job. And like, even to the point to which like sometimes when I'm making fun of myself, or I'm like, oh, it's just really funny because I have this funny spot on my leg and it's just like a weird little red spot and I'm sure that it's nothing or just ingrown hair or something, but I'm really worried about it and I'm thinking I should probably go to the doctor, right? Because also my hip hurts and those two things might be connected, don't you think? Maybe. Like that's kind of how I let people in my life know that I'm self-aware, that I'm being insane, was that voice, and then I lent it to this character. And so there's personal stuff everywhere. And in the music as well, the eye of songwriting, I think, opens up people's feeling of ability to say, well, is this about that? Is that character this person? Is this that? Especially if you're like a public person, like, is this song about this other famous person that I'm interested in? Like that whole thing, not into that. I know that it's done very good for a lot of people's careers, but so anyway, so it is more vulnerable, but it also isn't, like, the final product isn't more vulnerable. The process of promoting it is.
Yeah. We were talking backstage. You have another big moment coming up. We're going to be able to see Maya on stage, acting on stage for the first time very soon.
Very exciting.
This spring in New York. Has that been on the list for a while, or you must be looking forward to this?
I think every single year since I left school, I was like, all right, this year I'm going to do a play. I'm like, this is what I need to do. And for a variety of reasons, it hasn't happened yet, but it's what I wanted to do with my life, and so it means so much to me that I get to be doing it now, and that I get to do this play by this extraordinary playwright. It's Sarah Ruhl's Eurydice. She's amazing, a playwright of our generation, and this is one of her greatest plays, and I feel really lucky to be getting to put it back up on its feet at the Signature, no less, which is a really special theater to me from my life. My dad has done a lot of plays there, so I've hung out backstage there and seen a lot of plays there in some ways because of its partnership with Juilliard. I got to go see tons of plays there when I was there, and it's a very special theater to me. So it's a fabulous cocktail, and I am debilitatingly nervous, but also extremely excited.
We'll be there to support, don't you worry.
Thank you.
Okay,
I hope to see you all there.
We will all be there, right, guys? Okay. I have some questions from the audience. Sam wants to know what your dream role is, or if you could create one for yourself, what would it be? What have you not gotten to do? What's on the list?
I really would. It's a cheesy actor answer, but I would really like to do As You Like It. Rosalind is such a great character. She's funny. She's romantic. I bet those are the same people that like the Randy Newman joke. And so I would love to do that. But generally Shakespeare. I'd love to play any of Shakespeare's great women. Is on my list of dream roles, and then really, it's about the people that you're working with. And like a lot of my dream roles haven't been written yet, and I can't wait to read them. And if anyone in here is a writer, please write it for me.
Lily wants to know, how does the process of preparing for an animated role differ from an on-camera role?
A big vocal warm-up. Which you do for on-camera too sometimes. You should do it always, but you really do it sometimes. In an on-camera role, sometimes you are only saying 4 or 5 sentences in a day. You might, on some movies, you get lucky enough that you're doing 3 to 4 pages a day. Other things you're doing 8 pages a day, but that's still a whole lot less than 40. And when you're doing an animated movie, you often do 40 pages a day because other things don't take as much time, right? The lighting department doesn't have to reset. The props don't have to reset. There's no camera department. You can just be you and be in the room, so you end up using your voice pretty rigorously for many, many hours. And so the biggest thing is a big vocal warm-up, or else by the end of the day you're going to be like, hey, I can't do it anymore, which is my least favorite thing to say ever. And so it's a vocal warm-up, and it's building the character with with the team around you, and focusing in on it and getting into the spirit of, empowering your voice to be able to do anything, and then reteaching your voice how to do what you're meant to do.
Ironically, I asked this of your Stranger Things co-star recently, David Harbour. What's the toughest effort expression to do as a voiceover artist? He was telling me about he had to pretend to be electrocuted for a recent voiceover role.
Wow.
Yeah.
That does make me think of the end scene of this film you all just watched, that was a really tough, the panic attack, or I should probably say anxiety attack, was a really difficult sound and vocal performance to figure out, especially because I couldn't see what the animation was exactly like. So it's kind of shooting in the dark about what is an anxiety attack in this story, what does anxiety sound like having one, and what are the other sounds and factors going on in terms of like the wind whipping of the visual around, and just kind of how to be a part of that, you know? That was really difficult. But for me, with my previously mentioned vocal nodules, screaming, nothing is harder than screaming. For me, anything within my like middle range, I can figure out how to do, you know. But if I have to go like, you know, really loud and really high pitched, hard for me. Challenge.
Jim wants to know how you deal with anxiety. What are your coping mechanisms?
Talking. I mean, I am lucky enough to have a lot of people in my life that don't mind talking to me and saying things out loud, sorting through what is the real threat and what is the imagined threat and what might be attaching itself, you know, what things from your past or your present or your personhood might be attaching themselves to that weird red spot on your ankle, you know, for lack of a better example, and how to separate the actual stimulus from what's being stimulated inside you. I haven't learned anything better than talking to people I love and that love me and have the patience to work it out and separate it all out. And it doesn't mean any of it is less serious, you know, like finding out that the thing is upsetting to you because of that time when you were a kid and there was something wrong and you didn't catch it in time, and that's why you're, you know, that's important. It just doesn't necessarily mean you need to go to the doctor for your ingrown hair, you know? It's important to deal with that feeling and where that comes from. It just might not inform today's decision making. And I think it's getting to know yourself and figuring out what about yourself needs to inform today's decision making.
What causes you anxiety on a film set?
Other people being late, me being late, fear of going up on my lines, other people going up on their lines, and a lack of clarity about the plan, actually, is probably the best. Like, what are we doing? Like, I've been waiting for 2 hours. What's happening? Do you need me? Am I being useless? Like, and is there a plan? And what's the shot lit? Like, as much as anyone I'm working with will read me in to the day, the calmer I feel. And I can work a pretty infinite amount of hours if I understand what I'm working on and why I am doing it. And I really hit roadblocks when I am being asked to do things I don't understand. And I'm working on that for people who might be considering hiring me. I am trying to get better at doing things I don't understand, but that's where our anxiety comes up.
Bernie says you've traversed many different art mediums throughout your career: acting, singing, poetry, songwriting. Is there something you haven't tried that you'd like to try next? What's been unexplored so far?
Thanks, Bernie. Long form writing of some kind. I really, whether it is a short story or a script or a short film and I know I just said short twice after I said long form, but you know, longer than like 8 stanzas and a repeated chorus, I think, and more narrative storytelling is something I used to do a lot, and I fell into poetry and songwriting in some ways because for me it was easier to connect imagery with thought and emotion and rhyme and melody and give it structure than having to sort of make sure that every sentence connects exactly and logically to the sentence that hath come before. And I know people have written novels and not worried about that, but I do. So I have read the Moby Dick and the chapter on whiteness, but the whiteness of the whale, I should say, to be clear. So that's kind of what I really want to push myself to be able to do next, is some form of a longer form storytelling.
Again, you said you're really good at watching TV. What are you watching? Do you watch every kind of show, or do you have a
It might be my like absolute like addiction and fear of the news, and my feeling that like I need to be paying attention, but also that like attention is actually what is being wanted from me from the people who have learned to monetize fear and attention and like use it to their benefit, even if you're upset about it. And that kind of confusion has definitely gotten me into a role of like when I feel, if I've already looked at the news enough and I feel like I've taken in all the information and anything more I would be doing would just be like fear, like allowing my own little fear rabbit to go. So once I've reached that point, I've been really enjoying watching political shows, which is insane, but like I loved The Diplomat this year. It's so good. And then after loving The Diplomat, I went back and watched the two great Aaron Sorkin news shows that I had never watched, of The West Wing and The Newsroom, which has been my like, wow, loving that. And it's a great refuge to pretend that we live like that still. Like that we get to have their problems. I mean, not that they don't have problems, they have problems, but I like their problems a little more. So that's what I've been watching lately, and also Madam Secretary. and I'm trying to think if there's anything else. But yeah, I've been trying to keep up with the Oscar movies and getting ready to have an opinion, and also enjoying some political-esque soap opera energy.
So any early opinions, or not early at this point, but 2024 movie opinions? You're an Oscar nominee via Inside Out 2. Any other films you're rooting for?
I mean,
performances?
as I said about Brady as my friend,
Yeah.
and if I had a vote, which hopefully someday I will have, I would vote for him.
Okay, we're going to end with the happy, sad, confused, profoundly random questions.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay.
Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog, but I love cats. If they liked me better, I would be a cat person.
They don't respond well to you?
I'm too needy. The dogs are right for me. I come to them and they go like, "Oh, you're here! We're so excited to see you." And the cats are like, "You seem like you have a lot of energy and like you want more from me than I want from you, and that's fine."
An imbalance in this relationship.
Yeah.
You should be, yeah, okay. What do you collect, if anything?
I was a kid, I collected glass animals. I now collect tour lanyards from concerts that I go to, and my friends' art.
Do you have a treasured lanyard? What's the tour that you really...
Eras tour.
Nice. Favorite video game of all time? Did you ever go through a video game phase?
Did I ever go through a video game phase? Yeah, I had a Nintendo, and I liked... wait, no, why now? Okay, well, I liked this one game that was where you could take care of dogs digitally. What? Nintendogs! Yes, I like Nintendogs a lot. You get your puppies and you bathe them and you make them do shows and you get points and I like that game a lot. I played this one video game that I also don't know the name of that I loved. It was like a mystery and you were like a detective in a hat and you traveled through a town and you had to solve the mystery by solving riddles. I loved that. And I also like Mario. And but I was never a big video game person and a big no violent video game person.
Right.
My brother recently put like those Oculus goggles on me and tried to teach me how to play like a gun game. He was like, Maya, you're a grown up now. Like you can be like, don't have to be such a baby. And I was like, okay. So I like put on the Oculus and I'm playing the gun game. And I'm like, and he's like, okay, now you got to grab the knife out of the air. And I'm like, okay, knife grabbed. And then he's like, okay, and now you've got to slash it. And I was like, okay, slashed. All right, I'm in, I'm doing okay. And then he's like, all right, now you just have to throw it at that guy. And I was like, okay. And I threw the console all the way across the room, and but you're also in the goggles, and you're like, where did it go? So anyway, not a huge video game person, but I do, and now I'm addicted to games on my phone. Like I like there's like a fruit game where you turn smaller fruits into larger fruits, and then they explode. I like that game a lot. I have a really high score. It's in the upward 8,000s if anyone else is playing.
Would you rather be 4 feet taller or 4 feet shorter?
God, neither. I would rather be 4 feet shorter, I think. I mean, am I No, that's not a question I'm going to ask. I would rather be 4 feet shorter with the hopes that the people that I love might be able to put me in a backpack.
Oh, that's sweet.
And carry me around, and that more places that are uncomfortable for tall people would be comfortable for me.
Yeah.
Like,
You thought this through.
yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
What's the wallpaper on your phone?
Me and my boyfriend.
Do you ever get mistaken for another actor? Last actor you were mistaken for?
My mother.
Really?
Yes.
How does that go down? What, like, literally?
Like, literally, people, I guess, who just, like, haven't checked the world in 20 years. Like, I've walked down the street and someone be like, boy, I've had kids be like, you were so good in Pulp Fiction. Like, thinking that, like, they just watched this movie that just came out.
Time froze, yeah.
Yeah. I've also had, like, older people be like, I loved you in that. Like, and it made me like, yeah, it's an honor. So that is the person I'm most commonly mistaken for.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's the worst note a director has ever given you?
A director told me, actually, I think it was a producer, but they were in cahoots, told me that I looked prettier with my mouth closed and that I should close my mouth after I speak more often. Now, if you watch any of my performances, you will see I am kind of a mouth breather. Like, I do often let my mouth hang open. But depending on what character I'm playing, because I feel like jaw tension and mouth tension is so important to express what kind of person you are. And some people have a very tight mouth, you know? They really work on keeping their and they don't smile with their you know? They're really like, and some people are like, hey, so good to see you, man. Like, oh, I'm just having a great day out here, you know? And so, like, where you leave that, I think, is really important. And I was really upset about being told that I should close my mouth more to look prettier, because I was playing a character that was, like, distinctly unself-conscious. Like, that was a trait of the character, that they didn't care about looking pretty and they were unself-conscious. And so it was clearly just, like, a desire of the aesthetic of the thing, and I was annoyed about it.
Did you make it known you were annoyed, or you just...
I mean, you've talked to me for 30 minutes. What do you think?
You did. You said something. And finally, in the spirit of happy, sad, confused, an actor that always makes you happy. You see them on screen, you're happier.
Allison Janney.
Oh, good one. Okay. West Wing on the mind.
Yeah, well, I just connected the dots. But always.
Movie that makes you sad, always.
Family Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Happy, sad. But I don't like watching movies that make you sad. I will if they've been, like, nominated for awards and everyone tells me that I have to. But I'll take happy, sad, but I don't want to be sad.
And finally, a food that makes you confused. You don't get it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Fun. Food that makes me confused. I mean, food doesn't befuddle me that often.
You see this on a menu. Like, why would anybody find that appealing?
Like weird parts of animals,
Right.
like. But I get, like, those are also just cultural. Like, it's not like, it doesn't have to be confusing to me. Like, how could they possibly eat the chicken neck? Those weirdos, like, 'cause they do. Like, I don't know. I eat the chicken leg. Like, that's not.
Yeah, that's no weirder.
We're all talking about the chicken. So I don't know what makes me confused. I'm just not befuddled by food.
Great.
I love food. I love trying new things. When things don't gross me out that easily. I'm not easily grossed out, and sometimes I don't like things, but I'm excited to try it and to understand a new experience. Maybe I'll think of something in a minute.
No,
but
don't.
Yeah.
You say yes to life. You say yes to food. Maya
I say
Hawke.
yes to food.
We love that about you,
Yeah.
among other things. We also love this movie. Look at that segue. Inside Out 2, I don't need to say this, but you can spread the good word if you want. If there's someone on the planet that doesn't know about this movie, where have they been? It's a beautiful piece of work, as Pixar always delivers. And congratulations on joining the Pixar family. This is a special one.
God, I'd love to get to stay a part of it. Thank you.
I'm sure you will. Thanks, guys, so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you all.
Maya Hawke, everybody. We're seeing her on off-Broadway very soon, right? Okay, good.